Okay, good morning, everyone. Before we start our January 9th CalSTRS board meeting, I would like to feel like Dana this morning, I'm just going to say it. I would like to acknowledge the wildfires in Southern California right now. We do know that our board members are safe and helping family and friends, our missing board members. A lot of our CalSTRS members have been affected personally and professionally by this disaster. At last count, when I talked to Liz yesterday, 380 schools were affected by the fires. I'm sure that number has gone up. I just want everyone to know that our hearts go out to them and their families. CalSTRS does have a response plan for these types of incidents, and we've already started implementing them. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. It's okay. Take a breath.
We will continue to monitor the situation and figure out how it's affecting our members and communicate with them to ensure that they're receiving their benefit payments. We've also, I actually got an email yesterday, proactively contacted members as far as any scheduled appointments. Our Glendale office is closed as of right now. I do want to say that the Department of Ed has a disaster relief fund. CTA has a disaster relief fund. So if you're affected, I hope that you will reach out. And if you're not and can donate, that would be appreciated as well. Okay, on that note, let's call roll and start the meeting.
Ms. Whitaker?
Present.
Ms. Gallegos?
Present.
Mr. Tang?
Present.
Ms. Yamamoto?
Here.
Mr. Gunning?
Here.
Mr. Ruffino?
Present.
Mr. Juarez?
Here.
Chairperson Bradford, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We are actually going to approve the agenda. Oh, I was going to do it when we came back, but okay. That's fine. We can do it now too.
Okay. The CalSTRS board meetings are live web streamed, video archived, and available to the public on calstrs.com. Individuals who wish to address the board should wait for the 10-minute public comment period at the end of the agenda item the speaker wishes to address. For comments not pertaining to a specific agenda item, there will be an opportunity for additional statements at the end of the open session. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to comment. However, if there is not enough time for each speaker to have 3 minutes, the timing will be at the discretion of the chair. To protect the privacy of speakers under the age of 18 who wish to address the board, only their first name and affiliated organization may be provided, but other personal identifying information, such as their last name, age, or school, may not be shared. Since the November Teachers Retirement Board meeting, CalSTRS has received one email from a member who is worried about the capital markets and wanting to know if their retirement is safe, and one email from a member asking CalSTRS to support H.R. 82, Social Security Fairness Act of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, item number 1, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded without objection. The agenda is approved. Are there any public comments on the agenda?
There are no public comments for this item.
Okay, great. Then we are going to retreat into closed session, and we expect to reopen the meeting around 10 a.m. Thank you. We are going to go in the caucus room for closed session. We made no decisions. We just received educational items. Before we start again, I would like to introduce Steve Juarez to everyone. Steve was appointed by the governor to rejoin our board. He represented John Chung, Treasurer John Chung, a few years back, and he's been so gracious as to come out of retirement to help us with our board meetings. So we appreciate that and welcome. Okay, a little more off scripting this morning. I have to share good news when there's good news. I received a very nice letter from Mildred Ray thanking us for her 100th birthday card, and she sent a lovely book of the reflection of her life in high school, teaching high school, and the history from her home front in World War II. She wrote the book when she was 92, so I hope everyone finds that inspiring to keep doing the things that you love. All right, with that, we are going to start on item number 6, Chief Executive Officer report.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I just have a few things that I wanted to go over that were in my report. First, also really good news, CalSTRS has been named one of the best places to work in money management by Pensions and Investments for the 10th time. The companies named to this year's Best Places to Work list demonstrate a commitment to building and maintaining a strong workplace culture. And as Scott noted in our news release when we received the news, the culture at CalSTRS is one of the biggest competitive advantages, and you can see the respect and teamwork throughout the organization, whether someone is an executive or just a recent hire. So we really appreciate the recognition in the pension and investment area. Number 2, after a competitive bid process, CalSTRS Pension 2 has entered into a new contract with Voya Financial to continue to provide record-keeping services for the program effective November 1st of 2025. The contract extends the partnership for an additional 6 years and provides continuity of service for plan participants. Voya has committed to a renewed focus to engage our educators and employers through marketing, outreach, and education efforts. Pension 2 currently serves over 34,000 participants in our 403B and 457 plans. So we're excited about the continued partnership and growing that program for the financial security of our educators. So happy that we were able to secure that engagement. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that last month we came to an agreement on the substantive business terms with a prospective tenant to lease 2 floors, 8 and 9, and we're now currently negotiating the final form of the lease agreement with the prospective tenant. So the initial lease is for 11 years with 2 5-year options to extend. The completion of tenant improvements and delivery of the premises should occur by May 1st of 2026. So we look forward to having some neighbors in our building. So that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Oh. I don't know how to get the right screen up. I don't have the queue up, Jonathan, if you could help me. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, are there any public comments on item number 6?
There are no public comments for item number 6.
Okay, I will just say congratulations to our team on being the best place to work at CalSTRS for 10 years. I think that really speaks volumes about our leadership and our staff. Can you split it between the presentations? So thank you very much for that.
Excellent.
Okay, that brings us to item number 7.
All right.
CalSTRS strategic plan.
And I think Amy McDuffie is going to be joining us. I'll kick this off and she's going to start the presentation, but we've been working on the strategic plan for just a little over a year now, and it takes an 18-month process as we engage with our stakeholders, the board members, staff, and all those who have a vested interest in the strategy and direction that we're going to take in the organization. So this is a culmination of the work that we've created so far to present to you as our first reading of the strategic plan. And Amy's going to walk us through the beginning parts, and I'll contribute in parts of the presentation as well.
Sure. Well, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you, Cassandra, for the nice introduction. This has been a very collaborative process and many months in the making. And so to continue using analogies, we're rounding third base. And obviously, this is a process that starts and ends with the board. And so we have several milestones built into the process so that we can continually get your feedback and refine the plan. And so we're at that point today where we're doing a first reading. This is an information item. And of course, Cassandra, I'm delighted to be presenting with you. This is a a truly collaborative effort between the executive staff and the board, and reflects a partnership of how you work together to set organizational priorities and then make sure that they're implemented. So for today's discussion, you should have two documents in your materials. One is the presentation, of course, and the other is the working draft of the strategic plan for the 25 through 28 period. And I stress the word working because you'll notice there's a placeholder in it for the CEO letter from Cassandra. That will be done next time that you see it, but it's not quite there yet. So we're going to focus the conversation today and your feedback on the concepts that were added to the plan since the July offsite. So the arc of the conversation that we have here, I want to do just a bit of recap on the process of strategic planning, how it works here. I'll use that word competitive advantage as well, because this process is a competitive advantage for CalSTRS, and so I want to touch on that. The middle section, of course, after Cassandra and I do a brief tee-up, will be to hear your feedback and what your thoughts are so that we can listen and incorporate those in the next draft that we bring to you in March. And then we'll wrap up by just sharing what's on the road ahead. Okay, so as we think about strategic planning, you know, those are two words, strategic planning, and oftentimes they're not well understood. There's so many different definitions of, well, what is a strategic plan and at what level does it operate and reside, and all sorts of different types of strategic planning documents you can find depending upon what sector you look in. And certainly when you think about strategic planning here, I would encourage you to think about it with this framework in mind. And really what this reflects that CalSTRS has built out is a strategic performance management framework. And CalSTRS has been a pioneer among U.S. public pensions in establishing strategic planning and adopting this practice of strategic performance management decades ago. So it's something that over the last 20 years has not stayed static. As a business process, it too has evolved and matured into one of the most comprehensive and integrated frameworks among U.S. pensions. And certainly as a firm that works with other pensions, our team gets questions all the time about who does strategic planning best among public pensions. And inevitably, they'll find themselves talking with Cassandra or Lisa or Vaishali Dwarka in the ESM team. So the reason it works so well is reflected by this framework. The strategic plan is that underlying engine, the gears, if you will, that move the organization forward. It's the long-term vision. It translates then into actionable goals in your middle step, the annual business plan. So although this is a very long-term vision on a rolling 3-year basis, annually, the staff works to develop the priorities, the initiatives that are going to be executed against the priorities. And then, of course, the third piece, very important, is looking at what are the accomplishments. So how are we actually moving the organization forward? Are we doing what's been set out? And so at this point, while we're focused on the strategic plan, please know that there's been a tremendous amount of work already that staff has been doing on the middle part and thinking carefully around what are those initiatives that are really going to bring these objectives to light. Some of the objectives that you'll see in the plan today have been worked on for the last 3 years, and they're going to continue. They'll have aspects that continue. Some are net new. So again, this is the framework. When we say strategic planning for CalSTRS, it's much broader than just this document that's in front of you. It's part of the cultural DNA. So then transitioning to the next slide, I'll turn it over to Cassandra, who can talk you through where we are in this framework and how we'll be moving forward. So Cassandra, over to you.
Great, thank you. And then I'll let you could just drive the slides for me. I think I'll
Sure.
a couple. So we're in the interior years of a longer term strategic vision. Right now, we're in the final stretch of the 2022 through 2025 strategic plan. We have a 3-year planning cycle. We've been assessing and building our capabilities in recent years. We've had maturity assessments and sought expert guidance in important areas like DE&I, innovation, change, and risk management. Next, we'll see those efforts through to completion in the next strategic plan, Engage and Act. Those are the major themes that will be focused on in the 25 through 28 fiscal years. Next slide. So at our July offsite, executive staff presented the research findings, the SWOT analysis and priorities, and we received your feedback on the future success statements for the organization. We also broke into focus groups to discuss which future success statements may require additional focus or where CalSTRS should maintain its current level of focus. Since the July offsite, the executive team met in September and again in December to incorporate the board's feedback and finalize this draft strategic plan that you're reviewing today. We've been working on a 3-year business plan roadmap and associated costs to present to the board in March, which will be a more deeper conversation as to the resources that we feel will need to be allocated to deliver on the strategic plan objectives that we have set out for the organization. We'll be presenting that in the annual business plan in the July 2025 meeting. So that's when we do the reading of the business plan and then followed on by the accomplishments report at the end of the year. So that's where we are in the planning cycle. Back to you.
Great. Thank you. Madam Chair, just ask, are there any questions about the process or where we are? Again, reflecting that this slide picks up in July, even though many of you recall that we did interviews with the board far before that. So in order not to hurt your eyes and to have a timeline that made sense, we started with where we last left off. So, but if there are any questions, we'd be happy to take those about the process.
Okay, so I'll continue the next slide. So the document before you represents the culmination of input, analysis, and discussions and builds on the foundation of our 22 through 25 strategic plan, in addition to the themes of engage and act that directly build on exploratory work we've done in recent years. We've made a number of changes to our long-term vision and set new progress indicators for the next 3-year planning cycle. The world has changed since we've established that long-term vision in 2022, and the pace of change continues to increase. We'll keep monitoring and calibrating our strategy as we progress toward that vision. In addition to the areas of focus already mentioned, DEI, innovation, change, and risk management, a few highlights from the new plan include objectives supporting full funding are included under Goal 1. The investments branch shared vision and their private market engagement, net zero, and DIMI work plans are progressing under the new plan. We've also included efforts related to board education and governance under Goal 1. Under Goal 2, we remain focused on enhancing the customer experience and improving internal efficiency. We're looking forward to post-implementation activities related to pension solution in the coming years. As you can see, we've gotten some of our big infrastructure projects completed and in the final phases of completion. So we're elated in the organization to be at this point in time with those projects coming to fruition. We'll be going through those stabilization projects and resourcing and reallocating project resources during the next planning cycle. Emerging technology, including AI, is specifically called out in the strategic plan. If you recall, when we were undertaking the 22 through 25 strategic plan, AI wasn't really in the environment to the degree that it is now. It was in the peripheral. We're starting to hear about it, but it has been really ramping up, and we are prepared to address AI as it's entering our environment and looking to see how we leverage it, not only addressing the risks associated with it that we recognize in our understanding. I always say that we're in an education consumption mode, learning, but in preparing the governance around that is something that we've already set out and have created a framework around. Under Goal 3, in addition to our ongoing work related to workforce planning, DE&I, and sustainability, we've strengthened our definition of success related to cybersecurity to stay ahead of risks. Back to you, Amy.
Sure, yeah, thanks. I thought what I would also do is just touch on a few points of discussion that we had at the July offsite to help you understand how we integrated those real quickly before we turn it over for conversation. So under Goal 1, Trusted Stewards, and this is again attachment 1 and it's page 5. These are the vision of success measures that describe what the ideal state looks like once you've accomplished your goals. And so there is one around members, employers, and policymakers support the value of the defined benefit. And so staff incorporated the feedback that the board brought forward at the offsite that emphasized California public education careers as attractive, supported by CalSTRS benefits. So that might be a conversation that you recall that we had in July that then was pulled forward. And then in Goal 2, leading innovation and managing change, that's page 7. For customer service, there's an as demonstrated by statement in that column that referred to CalSTRS as a sponsor of financial literacy and financial wellness solutions in the 22 through 25 strategic plan. And the question was by the board, and there was a discussion, of course, about whether the better term to use was a broader financial education, especially as it relates to CalSTRS benefits. And so staff reflected on that in the meetings that they had since July and agreed that it should be changed. And so you'll see that new statement reads, throughout their careers, educators recognize the value of benefits CalSTRS provides. And so these updates that were made ensure alignment with the board's direction and the results of that conversation at the July offsite. So now as we move forward for the discussion, the question on the table that we're hoping to hear board feedback on is your reaction to the concepts reflected in the draft that you see before you today, specifically around the objectives, because that's really the net new content that would be new to you since that July conversation. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you for questions, and we'll be happy to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Karen.
Oh, thanks, Denise. Thanks, Amy. I didn't realize that we did all this stuff. For one thing, just because it's such a inclusive kind of conversation, and I remember talking about a lot of this, but I think it's really so nice that you able to put it into words that we actually talked about. One of the things that I wanted to look at is on page 6 under D. I just wanted to make sure that, strategically involve relationships with members, employers, policymakers, and partner organizations. That does mean and include our stakeholders, correct? Okay, and so I didn't know if partner organizations or who that really includes, just to make sure that that's there.
The stakeholders is such a broad term that we use in a
Right.
number of different areas.
Right.
And when we use stakeholders, sometimes it might exclude, we were afraid it might exclude some areas. So we tried to just capture all of those that we actually interact with, regardless of a stakeholder, whether it be a member, the state, or an employer. There's other stakeholder or other relationships like partner organizations that we have to have engaged.
But that's the spirit of this.
Exactly.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And then could I ask another one? Of course. Okay. On page 8, under goal 2, letter D, like David, where it says enhance operational agility, efficiency, and effectiveness, the third bullet talks about the defined contribution program. Is there going to be anything to say about the defined benefit program?
Well, the defined benefit program is a mandatory program for our teachers, but the defined contribution is voluntary. And we want to make sure that we have the ability to grow it at the pace that the consumption is, the consumption is asking for. So we want to be able to expand it in response to how fast it grows. It is starting to grow, and we want to be able to resource up and adequately position ourselves so that we can be responsive to those additional supplemental benefit savings opportunities for our members.
Okay, so the DB is implied then, and so the DC.
Yeah, the DC is since it's a separate benefit component that we offer. It's a voluntary program. We have a separate focus, and we always have in our strategic plans. It's becoming more a bigger piece of the financial vehicle savings tools that we offer. So we want to make sure that we are adequately positioned to accommodate that need.
Okay. And I guess I just one more thing about goal 3, letter C. I just really like the way that's worded. That's all. Thank you.
Very nice.
How they're the 3-year progress indicators and what that looks like. So thank you for that.
Finished?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ruffino.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'd like to begin by saying thank you to Madam CEO for your leadership in this process. It's been invaluable. And of course, to Ms. McDuffie, your guidance is superb. So thank you for guiding us through the process. Quick question with respect to progress measurements. How will success be measured mid-cycle? And what mechanisms are in place to make course corrections if needed?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Ruffino. I think that's an excellent question. And there are actually two places within the strategic performance management framework where we look at the expected outcomes. So here within the strategic plan, we have the 3-year progress indicators, and those are kind of considered as an objectives and key results framework. So that when you look at the 3-year progress indicators, we want to be able to look back as we close out the 2028 year and say, how well were these progress indicators met, right? So that's one way that when the executive staff starts their work on the next strategic plan, they usually do a closeout of that prior plan, right? What needs to be brought forward because it's not finished, and what can fall off the plan because it's operationalized. Now, that middle step, that middle box in the strategic performance framework that I showed to you is the annual business plan. And that's where there's a lot of measurement and accountability that happens on a year-over-year basis, right? So there's metrics and targets that are built into each one of those annual business plans so that the initiatives that are lined up have deadlines attached, resources attached, people attached, so that you can look on a quarterly basis or more frequently if you'd like, if you're staff, and say, how are we doing on these things? How well are we actually going to be able to get them accomplished? So there's no surprises. And so every year as part of the CEO evaluation, Cassandra and her team pull together an accomplishments report that specifically demonstrate how well those metrics and targets were accomplished. And so that's that function and that rhythm annually that allows the board and Cassandra to talk about where are you, what might need to be reprioritized if necessary, and what are some of the challenges that you're experiencing, so that you don't get to the end of a 3-year period and say, oh, surprise, this isn't met, right? So that's why we have multiple layers built in at the highest level so that there's agreement between board and staff on where are we headed, but then in those interior years to be much more specific about what are we going to accomplish really to make sure that we can get this completed. So I hope that helps.
And if I could add, if you don't mind, we also as an executive team meet on these regularly and follow the progress of those. And then during the mid-year cycle, I'm providing a report to the chair and vice chair on our progress on the annual business plan. So there's a lot of checks and balances and reporting out, so.
That's great to hear. Glad to hear. Thank you. And I was going to ask about how adaptable is the plan to unforeseen changes, which you sort of addressed, particularly economic conditions may change, regulatory updates or membership needs. We don't know. So I think you answered, that the plan is flexible enough to be able to address these changes.
Yes, that's correct. I would just add briefly that the objectives, if you see how they're written at a very high level. And then we have your aspirations where you're headed reflected in those future success statements to serve as a North Star. And that gives your management team the opportunity to have flexibility and navigate as conditions are changing and prioritize, quite frankly. So that's why it works well. It's not a to-do list.
Great. Thank you so much. And back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. That concludes questions and comments from the board. Do you have anything else to add, or
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just thought I would close with some next steps unless Cassandra had anything further. Okay, so where are we headed next? Thank you. First off, thank you for your feedback today, and we appreciated your comments. We are going to continue to refine the strategic plan document. We'll get the letter from Cassandra loaded in and have final conversations with executive staff about those. At the same time, we are working with Julie Underwood and her team because, as you know, and have been tracking over the last year, they've been working to mature the strategic plan by being able to provide a cost estimate of what the plan will actually cost with these activities that are contemplated. So we have some more work to do on that. At your March meeting, we're going to present that information to you. And if the board feels comfortable, that would be the time where you can have an option to approve the strategic plan. And if you say, well, I think there's a bit more work or information that we want you to do, we'll bring it back at your May meeting, which would be a third reading if it's needed. And also at the May meeting, you hopefully will recall that annually we have a conversation with the board. Which of these objectives will require board visibility and engagement? So, and identify those, which are the priorities, so that we can include them for purposes of your board and committee work plans. So that's another step in the process. So this whole engine will keep rolling forward, and we'll get the information pulled together for the next time we visit with you. And again, thank you for your time and your thoughtfulness and questions this morning. We appreciate it. And on behalf of my team, I also want to thank the executive staff for all their work and engagement and enthusiasm on this process, and the enterprise strategy management team led by Vaishali Dwarka, who have been instrumental in getting us to this point. So thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you both, Amy, Cassandra, your teams, the management team. It's amazing how you take what we think and say and put it into this lovely package. So we look forward to continuing to work on it. Thank you. Are there any public comments on item number 7?
We do have public comment on item number 7. They will receive a 3-minute timer. Our comment is from Rebecca. Please make your way to the microphone on the right.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Wu, and good morning. I am commenting on under page 5, goal 1, the accountability, transparency, as well as member trust. So there's several different ones under that item. So under that item is a serious concern that Betty Yee, who was overseeing the auditing and the compensation review unit and the audits, never took any action. Neither did STRS, neither did all the emails to the board that I have done. So these are not just public corruption, it's actually crimes, because you can't intentionally lower or higher the amounts going to the funds. Nonetheless, there was at 2016, 2017, the audit, the internal audit and or external audit, I'm not exactly sure, but it was published. And that audit showed that the compensation review unit, that when people complain that there is, and I say intentional, based on my experience that went to the U.S. Supreme Court, Wu versus STRS, and that's public. You can go on it anytime and review it at any time, and it's free to look at under docket search Rebecca Wu versus STRS. So if you want to know any of the reports that I'm citing and whatnot, they're all in there. But so anybody reviewing can look at that. So anyways, so that investigation found that the compensation review unit was not having any type of database, any type of reviews where any of those complaints get finalized or even get a decision to get to an ALJ, to an administrative law judge. So that's actually due process violations. So it's just hidden. There's nothing. They don't have it. And they intentionally do that because they don't review it and they don't want to. So that was part of the U.S. Supreme Court case, which is not actually, which can actually be refiled differently. But nonetheless, so that needs to be taken care of because that's not that's not accountability, but more importantly, that's intentional non-transparency and really crimes and atrocities. And so that needs to change. So that's all since Superior Court, California, Sacramento Superior Court, Rebecca Wu versus STRS, and you just log in, you get a free login, and you can look at all those documents. So everything's in there. And of course, there's been a documentary on that as well. But okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. That is the conclusion of public comment for item 7.
Thank you. Item 8, Pension Solution Project Update. Anthony and Chris.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Bradford and members of the board. Anthony Sweeney, Pension Solution Project Director. I'll be providing a pension solution update today, then I'll pass it over to Chris to provide his IPOC report on the project. Happy New Year. We arrived at 2025, and this is holding out to be a monumental year for all of us, I hope. I'm going to provide you the latest and greatest metrics on our progress through 2024. Then I'll update you how we're preparing the organization for go live and beyond, and then share the current project budget and close out with an overview of our project risks. Our overall project metric identifying our 5 most critical work streams is currently all green. Our UAT work stream did change from yellow to green since the last time we met in November, but it can still be volatile and varies within the reporting period as we manage individual tasks on a weekly basis. As you'll see, it remains one of our key risk topics, but you'll also see that our current progress is on track. These next slides cover project metrics that I share every board meeting and the current status. I'm happy to report this is likely the last time I will share these SIT metrics with you, as we've currently executed 100% of the SIT scripts and are down to the last 40 with defects that need to be resolved and passed. This next slide was inadvertently included that shows data from March. So I have a hard copy provided to you with the November data. If you wanted to reference that, there's some in the back of the room also for anybody who would like it. So although our progress on system integration tests was slightly below the overall target at the end of November, we're still on track to close out our final stream 6 next week and clean up outstanding defects from SIT by the end of February. When we zoom in on the mid-December status, you can see the gap of 46 test scripts that was at the end of November has been narrowed to 28. And as of last week, that number was narrowed to 15. So we're really close to what our targets were. I'll provide a summary of what has been accomplished during SIT at the next board meeting, and then we'll focus our metrics solely on our UAT efforts. This next slide is our defect reporting slide that shows the number of defects we expected as we executed SIT scripts. The last time we met, our defects were approximately 19% higher than expected, but I did mention we had executed a large majority of the scripts that flushed out defects sooner than we had planned on this line. This has held true, and our defects have trended back to the expected and are only 7% above what we expected, and we've continued to resolve those defects and pass test scripts in a timely manner. In addition, our critical and high defect counts that are in that orange line associated to unpassed test scripts has decreased over time and was at 39 at the end of November. And this is just a zoomed in view of that. And again, now that all test scripts have been executed, the focus is solely on fixing those defects and passing the remaining test scripts in SIT. And then the next is our overall view of outstanding critical and high defects across all testing efforts. So not just application, but also interface, batch, and data conversion. And you can see this did increase by 30% from October to November. In November, we were in the heart of Stream 6 testing, executing the majority of our tests and discovering a large majority of the defects for that stream. You can see, if you look back over the previous 6 months, that is a trend where you can see a decrease for 2 to 3 months and then an uptick as we enter the next stream. So this is not unexpected. If I was able to show you the updated metrics for December and January, the overall defects counts would show a reduction to 390 and then 376 respectively for those months. So they are trending down with as it shows over the trend. As I mentioned, in the upcoming months, we will focus more on our UAT progress. We are now 3 months into our 9-month UAT effort and have executed just about half of our 440 test scripts. And we have passed 133 of those test scripts with 85 failed test scripts as of mid-December. You can see in this metric, the 133 test scripts was right on target where we planned to be in mid-December. And as of today, the number of passed test scripts is 159. Again, this is right on target where we expected to be by the end of this week, which is 161 in that blue line there. Regarding the failed test scripts fail for many reasons, some because of true functionality issues, and others because of issues not related to functionality like data or training problems. When we have found functionality issues, the team is resolving those timely, returning those tests to CalSTRS for re-execution. And when the issue is something other than functionality, we triage, report back to the test team, and schedule that test to be re-executed once resolution has occurred. Approximately 1/3 of the failed test cases I mentioned are resolved and waiting for re-execution by our team. I just want to give kudos to our test team and to our Sagitech partners who have been able to keep pace even through the holidays. So that was a good thing. I like to show this slide as it depicts the business areas of the 133 UAT scenarios that had passed as of December 15th, and that's shown in the green shading. We're making progress across all business areas and not just experiencing success in any one business area. You can also see the failed test cases in orange, and those are also spread across many business areas as well. So it's not any individual business area that's having the overwhelming number of failed cases. Eventually, this view will account for all 440 UAT test cases as they are scheduled and executed in the coming months, and I'll continue to show this view. In November, I reviewed a timeline of our transformation readiness activities. I wanted to cover a couple of those activities that have made progress since we last met. One of those activities that is more tied to the future state of CalSTRS is the project to program work we have been doing. This is an effort to transition the project into a program division that will eventually support our new system, Benefit Connect, for the long term. This effort requires working closely with our budget team and HR to fully vet the future needs of the organization and what the future holds for our project team. We're collaborating on how to make that happen, and we'll bring more information to you at the next board meeting, but I wanted to make you aware that it's on our radar as it's very important to our internal stakeholders. The next activity is preparing the organization for the path to go live. As part of that path, we have developed readiness scorecards and checkpoints to evaluate those scorecards over the next 8 to 9 months. Readiness scorecards are tools we use to evaluate the system readiness as we move into various milestones. These evaluations occur across 8 categories, which you see there on the right, and contain mostly objective data points of where we should be at the 4 predefined checkpoints. Each of these 8 categories have multiple roles of activities within them, with progress being identified on each one of those. Ultimately, the 4th checkpoint will determine our readiness to enter the cutover window, which is where we shut down the legacy system, have a blackout period of work processing, start our conversion processes, and then bring up the new system. You can see in this timeline slide where each of those readiness checkpoints are evaluated and the subsequent activity that is being kicked off, with our first checkpoint occurring next month, where we do our first dry run of cutover to practice and work through any issues before we arrive at the actual cutover sometime in fall of 2025. Our checkpoint 2 will prepare us to enter soft launch, where a production-ready system will be available to mimic production activities and further flesh out any activities that usually wouldn't be discovered until we actually were in production. This will also be a time for our steering committees to practice a go, no-go scenario. At our next meeting, I'll be able to provide you more detailed breakdown of the dates for that true cutover in fall of 2025 and some of the activities that will occur during that window. Another huge effort our transformation readiness team has been working on is an all-employee survey related directly to the Pension Solution Project. And I wanted to share some results of that survey with you. This survey was issued in November, and it evaluated the understanding, optimism, and communications related to the project. 433 of our CalSTRS team members took the survey, which was 31% of the population, a good result for this type of survey in any organization. Breaking down that 433, 75% of the respondents were our highly impacted stakeholders. Those are from our key branches that are going to be using the system or supporting the system. And 25% were our medium and low impacted stakeholders from other areas. I want to walk you through some of the survey results, which were very encouraging. It was a short, simple survey, 3 questions. I understand the new system's potential impacts to my business area. You can see when we look at all survey results, 75% of the respondents either somewhat agreed, or strongly agreed that they do understand the potential impacts to their business area. As we hope, the high impacted stakeholders are even more informed of those potential impacts. And the fact that it's 80% is very high. The second question was, I believe the Pension Solution Project implementation in fall 2025 will be successful. All stakeholders, 64%. Again, high impacted stakeholders, much higher in that area. I remember when I took this job and I saw the results of this question in one of our annual surveys, and it was like 28%. So I'm glad people are a little more positive about where we are. I receive adequate communications about the Pension Solution Project. Again, all stakeholders, 71% agree they're getting good communication. Amongst our high impacted stakeholders, higher at 75%. We also asked them, how do you like to receive your communications? The number 1 response was from leadership, whether that be myself as the project leadership, whether it be from their directors in their business areas, or whether it be from our executive team in various venues. They appreciate that, so we will make sure we continue to do that. We also had open-ended questions. We received many responses in that open-ended questions, and this was kind of the key themes from those. Staff are a little bit unclear about what go live looks like, what will happen when we implement. Lack in clarity, accessibility on project progress and communication, concerns about balancing all the different work that's going on and operationally and on the project. and how they manage that, and then concerns about how good will the system be when it goes into production. So this allowed us to put together a robust communication strategy for 2025. We're responding to all those concerns. We want to emphasize post-go-live support and this project to program so people know like what happens to me after the project's over. We want to continue this consistent and transparent messaging to business areas from leadership. We want continued transparency on our testing progress and the outstanding defects. And then we got a lot of comments about, we understand the system won't be perfect, but please tell us how to manage those imperfect things at Go Live. So we want to share our workarounds and procedures early enough so they're prepared for that. And then emphasize how we will support them post Go Live. What does maintenance and operations look like? How do they report issues? Who's around to help them? So we look forward to doing more of that as we approach Go Live. We have a small but mighty change management team on our core project team that really are instrumental in putting on these surveys and communicating these messages. We also have what we call change champions. These are volunteers from each of the highly impacted business areas, and even some of the medium and low impacted business areas have change champions. And they're more involved in the project happenings, and they take that information back to their business areas and spread the word about project progress, usually in fun ways, bingo games, trivia, roadmaps that help engage people. They're a critical cog in spreading communication across the organization, and then they share back with us, the core project team, about the pulse of their business areas and what they need to hear more about. So we really appreciate their involvement and spending extra time to understand what's going on in addition to their current workload. We have members of our core change management team and some of our change champions in the audience today. So I'd like to ask them to stand and be recognized. Thank you all. Couldn't be successful without them, so I appreciate their work. The next slide is our usual budget view. We're on track with our current budget plan through Go Live, and we have our next quarterly meeting with Department of Finance at the end of this month to keep them updated on our progress and spending. Lastly, I just wanted to review our project risks with you. I have previously shown you our risk guideline, the 7 categories of risks that are managed, and the number of each risk in each of those categories that's identified in parentheses. The score severity depicted here is based on the average score of all risks in that category. So we're actively managing 22 risks on the project. 12 have all mitigation steps completed, and we monitor those on a regular basis just to see if anything has changed. And the other 10 risks have active mitigation steps in progress, and we review those more frequently. Our key risk topics remain the same from the last time I presented our risks. We continually monitor our defect counts and want to ensure those continue to trend down, and outstanding defects from SIT do not impact our other testing efforts, primarily UAT. For UAT, as you can see by the data, our progress is going well, but we also know this is the most critical testing phase, and know if it does not go well, it will impact project confidence and our timeline. We continue to monitor our planned execution and pass rates and the resource needs from the business area to get us through this milestone. And lastly, data reconciliation is focused on our data conversion efforts, ensuring the data coming from our legacy system into the new system is balancing, and reports needed to balance our financials are complete. And so these are essential needs moving forward, so we continue to monitor the progress of those mitigations, which have been going well to date. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or comments or Maybe you want to hear from Chris first.
I think let's go to Chris and then we'll take questions.
Okay. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks. How do you move this thing?
To break it. Technology, you know how that goes.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay. I'll go ahead. Hi, everyone. Chris Cavodi, Guidehouse, and here with our independent oversight update. First off, we concur with what Anthony showed you and the data that he presented and his status of how things are going right now. And from system integration testing perspective, again, it's a critical phase in the project. A lot of test cases have been executed. We've seen that as a positive outcome as far as the number of defects they've pulled out of there. Obviously, you want to get through those. You want to figure out what's not working and fix that. And so they've made it through a lot of those. They've done a lot of testing there. And there's still work to do before they get to the end, but the end's coming soon. And we feel like there's no material risks to them missing that. I think they'll make that end date. And I think, again, we'll get the outcomes that we were looking for from that process. From a user acceptance test perspective, similar. That one's on track overall as well. As we mentioned, the team actually created their own, I want to call them burn-ups, their progress charts based on their own understanding of their business areas, their operational needs, their team capacity, those things. So they're tracking to those individually, and they are on track in those areas. And so it's important to continue to monitor that and watch that capacity of those teams, and particularly for the business area leadership, to drive that from their end as well as the project itself. And so again, we're comfortable with where that is today. We're watching those progress charts that he showed you, those dashboards, to look for indicators that maybe things may end up slowing down. And if they do, again, it's going to be a question of why. And so making sure that those business directors ask those questions of their teams and kind of drive that, maintaining that progress is going to be important. There's a pretty long runway there and not a lot of test cases to do. So again, we're comfortable with where that's at and that it'll get to the end. And it'll flush out what needs to be flushed out. So we're happy to see how that's going. On the vendor management side, again, we continue to see good collaboration between the vendor support teams, CalSTRS, Sagitech. Those are going well. They're in their areas of focus and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing there. Particularly in the UAT team, they've got a vendor support team with a lot of expertise, and they're leveraging that and listening. And I think that's making a big difference too. The PMO continues to facilitate these project activities. Anthony showed you the risk scores. They facilitate that risk and issue meeting and drive those activities across the owners of those. They foster collaboration across the project through the work streams, and they actually are driving the active monitoring and management of the schedule itself. So those work stream conversations and collaboration discussions, they have a big schedule component to them, talking about dependencies, up and downstream impacts of things if they were to move and if they were to extend. So that schedule-based conversation that we've always felt is important is going on. So again, that's a good thing there. And the last thing that Anthony touched on there was that we were interested in was those scorecards that he showed you. We've talked for a while now about bringing the business and the stakeholders along through the project, and how are they going to gain comfort at those checkpoints where they say, yes, let's continue, we're on a good track, we're supposed to do at this point in time, let's keep moving forward. Or the critical one at the end where it's time to push the button and people need to be comfortable saying, yeah, let's go live. I'm comfortable putting my name out there and saying, I'm ready to do this. Bringing them along, getting them to understand what that's going to entail, what those checkpoints are going to be about, what's included in those, what does an exit criteria even really mean. These conversations have been happening at the steering committee levels, which is really helpful. It's been kind of disseminated across the project and out into the business as well, which, again, getting them comfortable before we get into a checkpoint meeting where they go, well, I don't know what we're looking at and why I should say yes to this. It's very important. So those are happening, and it's going in a structured way. So again, that's a good thing there. And yeah, so with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
So my one question was, should we worry about the orange on survivor benefits? But from what you just said, I'm assuming no, we have enough time to not worry about how many, about the fail rate on that one particular spot.
Yeah, I think what I've always said about the charts, and I told the board this, is I would use those as and you did, use those as a jumping off point to ask a question, right? It doesn't necessarily say that there's a problem, but when we see that, we've actually asked those questions as well and said, what's going on there? Now, within that, there's data that drives it. So there may be a couple test cases that are sitting out there that have maybe one defect within them. There's a very long strung out test cases. And if you have a simple defect that's in the middle of it that stopped that case from executing, it's considered failed, right? But from a qualitative perspective, it's not something that we're worried about right now. So some of those have that component to them. Others,
The number was higher, was like 27, and the next highest was 17.
Right.
Does that mean more things are wrong, or one thing's
there's
taking
more
longer?
test cases that failed, but there's more test cases in that area as well.
Okay.
Like from the overall
makes sense.
percentage. Go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say, and survivor benefits is hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of the most complex areas, right? So
Yeah.
it's,
So don't worry, we're going to get there.
we will.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
I hope our
Got
survivor benefits
confirmation.
team will agree, but yeah, we work closely with them. And at that time that we produced this, which was like at the end of November, we've had,
Right.
so almost a month and a half. Many of those were ready to be re-executed. They had just fixed some of the defects, so there were quite a few that were ready to be re-executed. And I don't know what the current number is off the top of my head, but yeah.
But we're
we'll
moving
continue
along.
to trend that.
Perfect.
Yeah, and that's where I would, again, hope that the business areas are having those conversations with their teams and why are these failing? And we've had a lot of conversations with Sagitech as well around what they're finding. Because again, I honestly don't care about the number. I think they'll get through it. I just want to know what they're finding. Is there a cluster of functionality in that business area that they just can't get to work? So as we get near a checkpoint, if there's a set of functionality in survivor benefits that they're just having trouble getting to work and it keeps failing, that's where we're going to raise a flag and say, there may be a small number of these, but it's a concern from a qualitative perspective. We aren't seeing that there. We're seeing a number that's there that's higher than the others. But again, there's more tests in that area and they are more complex. And again, you have many test cases that are very huge, and one PIR in there, one defect can actually kill that test. So there's that aspect to it as well. So we're looking at all those pieces.
Thank you for sharing details.
Sure.
We have a couple more questions. Mr. Juarez.
Yes, so in your heart of hearts, Anthony, come the fall, when you're going to come and report to us about implementation, I can't imagine we're going to be 100% successful. I mean, I hope so, but I doubt it. So what in your mind would be a measure of success where you say, you know, we didn't get 100%, but we got this much right? And have you thought of that in terms of what you could report to us?
And we're holding you to it.
That's an easy question, Mr. Juarez. I mean, those readiness scorecards actually have objective data, like we need to have trained 100% of our staff by this date and time, right? This particular application piece needs to be, and they're not, we know they're not all going to be at 100%. So we have those to evaluate how close are we. And we've done this a couple times, like entering UAT, exiting each of the checkpoints, where you have to take a subjective view of, yes, we're not at 100%, but are there any showstoppers there? So to me, things like not being able to pay our retirees would be a showstopper.
Yeah.
Right? Not balancing our financials, being able to balance our financials or have the tools to do that, those type of things. So I think we'll be close. We'll have workarounds, but I'm confident that we're going to get there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam
Karen,
Chair.
let me get you in there. There we go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going back to that timeline, it just kind of, when you said there's going to be some kind of a cutoff, it was making me nervous as to when that happens, because with technology, we know that if something could go wrong, it does go wrong. And with a lot of the things that you hear out in the corporate world about certain programs going off or certain, I guess, just being changed over, this is it makes me nervous. So all the things that you are putting into place to mitigate any kind of problems are happening, correct?
That's correct, and it makes me nervous too, Karen. That cutover timeframe, that's right. That's why we practice it. We have 2 dry runs that's when you're shutting off the system, practicing converting all the data over. That takes a long time. You're running all these batch jobs. You're making sure you can produce the files out of the new system. So. And there's no activities happening when you get to the real cutover, right? We're kind of shut down.
All right, and so all the business areas will be notified in advance that this is going to happen, and the precautions that are taken, and when does it go back on again, things like that, all that's.
And in our next meeting, I'll show you more details on that.
Okay.
And the business areas are being consulted on that already. They're weighing into that cutover period, try and shorten it as much as we can because we don't want to impact our members and our stakeholders, and we don't want to build up too much internal work for our teams. So.
And the timing of that, so when our benefits go out does it affect the benefit payments, the timing of that?
It will not.
Okay.
We'll run the monthly roll from our legacy system for the following month. Mm-hmm. Then we'll cut over, go live, and then we'll have about 2-3 weeks before we have to run the first payroll from our new system.
Good.
So it gives us a runway there to make sure we're good, and we're running those processes in our UAT. User acceptance.
So I'm glad you're worried about it too, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Oh, I thought I saw your hand go up. Okay, I see no more questions. I just want to share with the board that Karen and I do meet with Chris and Anthony between meetings, so we're not going more than a couple weeks without hearing updates, and we will continue to do that. And thank you both for taking the time to meet with us and keep us up to date and share all this information.
Great, thank you.
Are there any public comments on item number 8?
There are no public comments for item 8.
Okay, that brings us to item number 9. There are going to be 2 parts to item number 9. We'll start with the update on the state legislative report, and then we'll go to federal. Good morning, Joycelyn.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Happy New Year. I was going to mention taking the item in 2 parts, so thank you, Madam Chair. So we'll start with AB 65, which is before you for taking a position. This bill is regarding pregnancy leave, substantially similar to AB 2901 from last year, which the board took a support position on. There are 2 new provisions that require that healthcare be offered to a person on leave as if they weren't on leave, protecting that for them, and then also that there are no additional eligibility requirements besides what is already in the bill. So those are the only 2 new additions. I want to make a note. We've got background information, the analysis, support and opposition lists. Support and opposition are always in flux. So this was prepared at a point in time. If you looked at the support list from last year, it was quite lengthy. There will be people added onto this. So groups like CalRTA and others will be added when we post this on our webpage as analysis with your position noted. And so with that, staff recommends taking a support position again this year to reduce inequities in the plan design, and then recommend we take a public comment if this is the appropriate time for this bill.
We have 2 comments, and then we need to do public comment before we vote. So I'll go to the people in the queue, and then we'll do public comments. So Ken?
I'll defer because I was going to make the motion.
Frank?
Thank you, Madam President. I need to, I'm going to read a statement from the treasurer on AB 65. And Treasurer Fiona Ma is a proud co-sponsor of AB 65, and which reaffirms her commitment to supporting California's educators and promoting economic security for working families. Her leadership in co-sponsoring this bill underscores her dedication to policies that close equity gaps, particularly for women in public service. By championing AB 65, Treasurer Ma is helping to address workforce challenges by ensuring educators have the support needed to remain in the profession and continue serving California's students. This reflects her broader commitment to making California a national leader in reproductive health rights and workplace fairness by closing a critical policy gap, reinforcing California's values of equity, justice, and support for working families. Treasurer Ma recognized that fully paid pregnancy leave is not just about individual educators. It's about supporting families and creating healthier, more stable school communities. Her support for this bill affirms the belief that educators deserve dignity and protection, which ultimately strengthens the students and families they serve. Through this leadership, Treasurer Ma sends a clear message. California must lead by example in advancing workplace equity and supporting public servants. Therefore, she encourages the board a support for AB 65. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, with that, we will go to public comment on the first half of state legislation. Are there any public comments?
Yes, each of our public commenters will receive a 2-minute timer. Our first speaker will be Mary Kay.
Good morning to the chair and members of the board. My name is Mary Kay Scheid. I'm speaking on behalf of the California Teachers Association regarding item 9. We are in strong support of CalSTRS staff recommendation calling for the board to support AB 65. This is a CTA-sponsored bill which establishes pregnancy leave for California educators. The bill would provide public school employees up to 14 weeks of leave with full pay when an employee is pregnant or experiences pregnancy-related health issues. 70% of CalSTRS membership is female. Those female members often receive lower benefits at retirement than their male counterparts. A contributing factor is that female members on average have less service credit and less unused sick leave available to convert to additional service credit when they retire. School employees who have exhausted their sick leave due to pregnancy, miscarriage, childbirth, or recovery from those conditions are penalized, resulting in reduced retirement benefits than their male counterparts. This bill helps create greater equity and parity among CalSTRS members. We urge CalSTRS to support AB 65. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Kathy.
Hello, board. I'm Kathy Kinley, and I chair the Governmental Relations Committee for CalRTA. And looking at the impact on retirement, AB 65 is important for the long-range economic benefit of our overwhelmingly female retirees. The current system results in a difference for female retirees versus their male counterparts of up to $100,000 in lifetime retirement benefits. And for that reason, we urge this board to support AB 65, as we are in support as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. That's the conclusion for the state legislative portion of this item.
Thank you. Mr. Tang.
As a public school educator, I am enthusiastically and proud to move this support position for AB 65.
It's been moved and seconded. I believe we need a roll call vote.
Ms. Peralt?
Abstain.
Ms. Gallegos?
Aye.
Mr. Tang?
Aye.
Ms. Yamamoto?
Aye.
Mr. Gunning?
Aye.
Mr. Ruffino?
Enthusiastically, aye.
Mr. Juarez?
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes. Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our state legislation. Let's move on to federal.
Great, thank you, everyone. And so on the federal update side, the piece of legislation I have, it's very exciting to deliver the news that HR 82, the Social Security Fairness Act, was signed on Sunday, eliminating the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset after much hard work and advocacy by many of our stakeholder groups represented in this room over many, many years. And so this is the culmination of that. I just want to reiterate a few points in that this change does not affect CalSTRS benefits. It does affect Social Security benefits for our members may receive, starting with benefits that are payable after December 2023, starting in January 2024. We're in the process of evaluating updates to our publications, our website, our training, and I would also recommend that our members, await additional information from the Social Security Administration about how those benefits will be impacted going forward.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't have to sign up for new information.
No.
Just wait.
Okay, do we have any public comments on the second half of item number 9?
We do. So these commenters will also receive a 2-minute timer. We'll start with Susan.
Wow, here we are again, and thank you. And I didn't write anything out because I just got back from DC. I was privileged to be able to be at the signing, to shake the president's hand, and to have a photo with him, and to be surrounded by the organizations that have worked so hard. The energy, the excitement, and the shock actually in that room after 40 years was energizing. And what I wanted to remind everyone is this took a national effort. I was privileged to join under Rodney Davis 6.5 years ago, the congressman, to be invited to, we called it our little secret group, that had FOP, IAFF, the big guns, and CalRTA. Eventually it grew to be called the Kitchen Cabinet under Garrett Graves, the new Republican congressman, and Abigail Spanberger. So NEA joined along, and AFT, the people I've met and worked with has just been historically inspiring. The situations we faced, I'm working on over the last 10 years, the pushback from all the different elected officials was shown they don't win when we unite. You would be shocked and surprised how many hurdles we went through, from trying to change the rule to trying to bring the 8 votes at the Senate to defeat it through 7 votes. And I was thrilled to be in the gallery during the House vote with the 327 historical votes. And most excited, I was kicked out because we all stood up, cheered, shouted. You're not supposed to do that. But we had a situation with the Capitol Police. He said we could. So thank you. This is exciting. And I have to add, to see Sharon there, we had our picture taken. If I could do 2 seconds, she rocks. We were not going to get our picture taken until she yelled, "We are teachers." And so the military said, "Teachers approaching," and pushed us up. So it all works.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker will be Kevin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, CalSTRS leadership, and members of the public. My name is Kevin Welch. I am chair of the CTA Retirement Committee. I am here today with our other stakeholders to celebrate the passage of HR 82. For over 40 years, many of our members have missed out on benefits that they paid for throughout their various jobs. I am thankful for the work of our stakeholders, CTA, CTA NEA Retired, CalRTA, CalSTRS, and the NEA, to help pass this bill. I want to acknowledge one of our members, Ed Folia, a former CTA president and currently an NEA director who was not able to attend the president's signing in DC. Ed is one of the many members across the country that has worked for years on the repeal of the WEP GPO. Without members like Ed, the WEP GPO repeal may not have happened. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Dawn.
Good afternoon. Don Stauffer on behalf of CTA NEA Retired. I know, at least for me and probably others of you here, it feels like the opening lines out of A Tale of Two Cities right now, but I'm here to celebrate the passage of GPO WEP. The repeal is personal to me as well as to thousands of other educators in California, and it's going to make a material difference in our lives. I know we as an organization are telling our members to contact the Social Security Administration for updates, and I know the National Education Association this morning posted a very good FAQ for people who have questions about the implementation. On behalf of CTA NEA Retired, I want to thank all of those of us and all of us in this room and elsewhere who worked on the passage of this legislation. But I do want to make a special thank you to Ed Folia. He worked for decades, as Kevin mentioned, on the defeat of GPO WEP. And Ed, if you're watching today, thank you for all you've done for our retirement system. Thank you for all you've done for education and the education profession on your long and productive life. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. That is the conclusion of public comment for item 9.
Thank you. I have Steve in the queue.
Yeah. Let me start by extending my congratulations to all the folks that worked on this. It was a great victory, but I want to direct my comments to Ms. Dixon. I wasn't here in November, but I watched the video when you got up, when the outcome was less certain, and you were very direct and vocal about what needed to be done, and you got it done. So my extended congratulations to you because it was so inspiring. So thank you.
I just want to, me too, with Steve, and on behalf of all of us, say thank you to all of the leaders and all of the members who came out when it was necessary to letter write, call, et cetera, et cetera. I too am one of those people. It's going to make a huge difference for me when I retire, so I am eternally grateful, and I think all of us up here are. And unfortunately, many teachers do have second jobs and get their 40 quarters in. So this is really huge for a lot of people. So thank you very much to all of you. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item number 10, our board meeting calendar for 2025-26. Thank you, Joycelyn. Sorry if I didn't say thank you. Cassandra.
Okay, so before you in this item is a proposed meeting calendar for the 25-26 fiscal year. And as in the past year, we have 6 planned meetings throughout the fiscal year. We have 6 committees that will be holding meetings during this same period. And as you can see, as we look through the calendar, there are a number of different activities that we work around to try to accommodate all the different competing responsibilities of staff, board members, and other board required attendances that some of you may have to participate in. But we have a pretty good handle on how we are sitting right now. The thing that I wanted to point out is in July, we have an offsite again, and it's a 3-day offsite. Really, it's a half day on the first day, full day, and then half day to allow for travel on bookending days. And then in September, while it says it reflects 3 days, it's really a 2.5 day meeting here at headquarters to accommodate the performance evaluations of the CEO and CIO positions. In May of this year, the board will elect a chair and vice chair, and then followed in the July meeting, committee assignments will be assigned. So that is where we are. If you have any questions or suggestions or conflicts on any of the calendar proposals, we'd like to hear those at this time, and we can make, some adjustments if we need to. But again, these dates get really narrowed down with just the competing responsibilities that we all have.
Okay, Karen.
All right, thank you. With respect to July 25, do we have an idea of the location of the offsite yet?
It'll be in Southern California.
Southern Cal?
Time.
Okay.
Yeah, but we wait till we get the dates confirmed, and then.
Okay, I just wanted to, because I think our plan is to just alternate north-south.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Peralt.
I just wanted to say thank you. I'm not sure about the other dates, and I know your team works very hard, particularly with my staff, because our unfortunately finances calendar is a little bit nutsies, but it's a specific thank you that next year, January, will not be the week of the budget release, because I apologize to my fellow board members and to the staff that I've been running in and out because of the week it is this week. So thank you for pushing it out next year.
Yeah, I appreciate that recognition. This was a hard month because it's just right on the heels of the holidays for all of us. And
absolutely,
we have staff here that worked over the holidays, just like Department of Finance, just to make sure that we are prepared for this meeting.
Yeah, so appreciate that.
Thank you for your recognition.
Okay, I think we need to hear public comment before we go further. I'm pretty sure I can guess. Welcome, Leonard.
Thank you, Madam President. Cassandra, I just wanted to say thank you very, very much. Calendaring at best is difficult, and I appreciate the board and your leadership in being sensitive to various holidays and other things that happen naturally on the calendar. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on item number 10?
No more public comment for item 10.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to pass the 2025-26 board meeting calendar.
Ms. Peralt? Ms. Gallegos? Mr. Tang?
Aye.
Ms. Yamamoto?
Aye.
Mr. Gunning?
Aye.
Mr. Ruffino?
Aye.
Mr. Juarez?
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes and yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you, Cassandra, for working so hard on that with me. It was quite the matrix we had going. All right, that brings us to item, actually it's 11A through 11D, the consent items. Is there anything anyone wanted to pull? Okay, I see no comments. Is there any public comment on item 11?
There are no members of the public in the queue for this item.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda. Moved by Karen, second by Ken.
Ms. Peralt? Ms. Gallegos? Mr. Tang?
Aye.
Ms. Yamamoto?
Aye.
Mr. Gunning?
Aye.
Mr. Ruffino?
Aye.
Mr. Juarez?
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes and yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to informational items. Item number 12. I don't believe we have any committees or any referrals by committee for board decision, right? We just got updates.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. So that takes care of 12, 13. Information requests. I don't think
There's none.
We didn't have any. All right. Cassandra, is there anything you'd like to highlight in our draft agenda?
For March, we will be having the economic impact study delivered by Tom Buffalo. It's a really interesting categorization of how our retiree benefits really impact the local economies and the economies throughout the state of California. The other thing that I just wanted to highlight is that we will be having the costing discussion in the second reading of the strategic plan. We talked about that earlier today. So this is the first year we've talked about costing, but it really does bring visibility to the resources needed to deliver on the strategic plan. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. And those are the only things I wanted to highlight.
Okay, is there any further public comment?
There is public comment for item 15.
Okay.
The commenter will receive a 3-minute timer. And we'll be hearing from Rebecca.
Oh, this is on 15 and on
Yeah,
14.
15, the final.
So this is just general public comment, Rebecca Wu. And so in that case that's publicly viewable, the U.S. Supreme Court, Wu versus STRS, the only thing addressed at all levels of court, including the Sacramento Superior Court, where again, that's publicly viewable, but you need to actually log into that one. All the investigations by the auditor for the CRU unit, the compensation review unit. So anyways, the point is that what was not addressed by any of that in any court, and thus can continue, is the fact that there is no processes, there's no database where, and this is what was reviewed and determined to be not efficient, not transparent, where they're reviewing to when someone makes the complaint so that they can get to that first step and get a decision, then go to the ALJ. So that still needs to be addressed. It's not addressed. It never is addressed. It was reviewed and investigated and found internally, as well as I believe externally, that is not done. And so that becomes a serious concern. The other concern is that even if the courts don't require, that it wasn't published, but even if the courts don't require that STRS does not investigate when there is especially when there's like a court determination, like in my case, where I am a probationary employee, not an hourly 8-hour day, no lunch, no prep, no union, no CBA. And so when that is, that should be. And so I would recommend at least STRS make a proposed legislation that internally that something like that is taken care of, because it really should be. That's not transparent. So one thing is that it's inappropriate for a legal counsel to state that they will not further any type of started and approved by the compensation review unit, and to stop it when there is a investigation into a member's complaint about the improper services and credits, and to stop that, saying that pending litigation we would not continue. You can't do that. That's actually a violation of the Constitution, violation of everything in STRS.
Thank you for your comment. That's the conclusion of public comment for item 15.
Board governance slated to begin at 1 p.m. Mr. Gunning, what's your pleasure? Start at 1 p.m. or would you like an hour for lunch?
Let's do an hour, 1:15.
Okay. Board governance will begin at 1:15. Enjoy your lunch.